Hello and welcome to E2E's Business Unusual, a video content series for and by the SME community. I'm your host, Fergus Mellon, and today we're joined by Jeffrey Fidelman, founder of Fidelman Company. Jeffrey, thanks so much for joining, and please, to get things underway, can you give us a brief overview of you and your business?
So over the past 5 years, we have built a management consulting firm. It's focused on strategy and operations, but really what we do, and most people always ask, you're a consultant, what is it that you do? We come into a business and we really try to help that business with any and all gaps that they might have. So whether it's putting in place operating documentation or actually implementing those operations, whether it's helping a company go out and raise additional capital, whether equity or debt, to continue growing its operations, we will come in and help with the documentation, help with all the collateral creation, help work with the business management or the founders to put together whatever is needed to get them to the next stage. And what we've decided to do is, looking back over the past 5 years, having built the operations, having built the infrastructure of a proper, what I call remote native management consulting platform, the way that we're now growing it is by bringing on additional principal consultants. We are turning consulting on its side or on its head. But essentially, the fact is very simple. The operations, the infrastructure, the staffing, the talent, the bench, we have assembled and created. And in an effort to grow, as opposed to asking partners or principals to buy into our firm to give any type of commitment, we're simply bringing them on, giving them access to our infrastructure, to our operations, to our talent, and allowing them to go and essentially run their own business. So plug in, you have an entire consulting firm at your disposal, go win the clients, do the normal thing a partner or principal would do, 90% sales, 10% of work. Not to diminish the work being quality assurance, client relationship management, team management, delivery management, but plug into our firm so that we can help you grow and that you can help us grow.
How are you seeing, regarding trends in employment? What changes are you seeing there coming out of COVID, and again, how are you positioning yourself to take advantage of those?
Some of these companies that were in the market to hire a full-time CFO have scaled back a bit and hired a fractional CFO and hired a fractional VP of sales or an interim COO. And what they have found in my conversations with these companies is that they're paying far, far less for maybe slightly less face time with that person, meaning they're still getting the value of having that C-suite executive kind of on or around their team. They have the ability to hire somebody maybe even more skilled who wouldn't normally be available for them on a full-time basis. They can hire that person on a part-time basis. Companies have been finding an exponential amount of value from those individuals. Again, from an economic perspective on the company side, and frankly, from a value perspective on the company side, because now you have someone who is able to work in a remote environment, stepping into what's probably a remote environment already due to coronavirus, and is able to add additional value, maybe where a traditional CFO or COO could not before.
What would you say are the three things to think about in terms of testing out these, a consultant, a fractional executive?
So first, it's important to understand, what is the problem? What problem are you trying to solve for? What gap are you trying to fill? So that's number one. Number two is really understanding, okay, I'm going to get rid of my CFO. I'm going to bring in a fractional CFO. What does that look like? What are my expectations of this fractional CFO? What do I actually need him or her to do? Is it daily reporting? Or is it simply reviewing the audits on a quarterly basis and signing off on, financial covenants to the investors, to the creditors, to whomever? So number one is identify the gaps, both existing and what will be left by the removal of the person you're looking to remove. Number two is really identify responsibilities and expectations, right? And when it comes to expectations, this is maybe something on equally on both sides. Certainly, I as a consultant weigh very, very, very heavily on kind of 2 points of philosophy. That's communication and setting expectations. And and the reason why I weigh so heavily on those two, especially setting expectations, is that I want to make sure as a consultant that you and I have set the proper expectations so that when the engagement does begin, you're not turning around, coming back to me and saying, oh, well, I thought you were going to do this, or you should have been doing that, or why didn't you do this? And the reality is that I can always go back and say, look, I absolutely can do this, but we set the expectations. You told me exactly what you wanted me to do, and this was just simply not on the list. So expectations really work both ways, and that's kind of the number 2 point. And number 3, stemming off of what I just said, is communication. And this, again, it takes 2 to tango. You as a person trying to fill a gap, these are things you should be looking for the person you're hiring to deliver to you as well. Communication is key. So communicate the expectations, communicate what's working, what's not working, check in with your consultant, and vice versa as a consultant with your client on a weekly, on a daily, on whatever expectations you set for check-ins, check in on that regular interval to make sure you're communicating, to make sure that you are in fact delivering the value, or again, from the business perspective, to make sure that you're receiving the value from the consultant.
Oh, thank you. And changing topic a little bit. You're out in the US on the East Coast. You've got through, let's just say, at least the first wave of the COVID crisis, and hopefully the only wave, but still massive uncertainty over what's happening, both the UK and US, in terms of whether it's a second wave and more lockdown, or something else, the next black swan that we don't foresee. What are you doing to kind of build redundancies into your business or process to make you more robust and able to kind of weather these storms going forward?
I think that the ability for many business to continue, granted, might be a direct result of the year we're in. 1918, during the Spanish flu, there was no Slack, there was no Zoom, there was no email or internet or or gig. Forget about gig economy or remote work altogether. But we do live in a world where I'm able to have a very, very clear conversation with you, and you're thousands of miles away from me. And we're able to conduct this conversation and have it be useful. And hopefully I'm delivering some value to both you and the platform and the people listening to this. So the world has certainly changed. The world will continue to change. I think there's going to be a big displacement of traditional, what you and I maybe, or what any viewers would consider traditional work environments. But there's still business, there's still a need for stuff, there's still a need for services, whether it's widgets being sold or services being sold. Maybe they change. The Industrial Revolution happened. People still found ways to work. People still found ways to make money. People still found ways to survive. Some would argue that quality of life, yes, there's still homelessness and still kind of horrible things happening in the world, but quality of life, at least in the US, let's say, the lowest standard has been raised because of all of the kind of technological advancements that we've had. So I think that employment in general will change. I think you'll see a lot more people, even at a greater pace than before, go into some element of independent work. But frankly, I saw that coming a long ways down. 100 years ago, highly customized services and products delivered to the individual buyers, to this mass production of products and services to try to appeal to the widest audience possible, to now we're kind of heading into a situation where maybe because people are going into independent work, maybe because financial advisors are finding their independence, or clothing retailers are finding their independence, or consultants are finding their independence and being able to step away from the MBB or the major consulting groups and firms. I think that with this advent of gig, with this advent of remote work and work from home, you're going to see a lot more independent businesses pop up because they're capable of delivering the same, sometimes better service than maybe a massive company would.
But that actually sounds like good for people, right? Getting out of those large corporates and essentially being solo entrepreneurs or smaller business people themselves.
Yes, I do think a lot more people will go into gig. I do think a lot of people will go into independence. I think there might be some rebalancing in several years once savings funds run out, once people realize that it's going to take more than a year to be successful in anything you do, most likely than not. So I don't think that big companies are going away by any means. But I do think that a lot of actual skills and deliverables and people are going to be repurposed in what they actually do.
And then from me, just the final question, as a entrepreneur, a company founder, what's the one bit of advice, or it could be something you experienced yourself, whether in 08, 09, that's remained with you and that you're putting into action yourself to keep things moving, but you think will also be useful to other members of the E2E community.
So everything is impossible until somebody does it. Key takeaway from that, and maybe it's me that I'm motivated when people tell me that I have a bad idea. I'm motivated when people tell me why it won't work. In fact, when I'm working on a business, even on my own consulting firm, I always try to have people tell me why it's not going to work. And that type of criticism, in my opinion, is best because those are the roadblocks that you're probably going to have to overcome. So you may as well have somebody tell you and argue against why you'll be able to overcome it and make a plan for overcoming that. Because it's true that things are impossible until they get done. And what that really means is that nothing is impossible.
I'll just say on behalf of everyone watching this, everyone at E2E, thank you very much, Jeffrey, for your time today. And just if people want to learn more about your business and you, what's the best way of doing that?
Everything's up on our website. The website is fidelmanco.com. fidelmanco.com. Feel free to connect with me over LinkedIn. My name is Jeffrey Fidelman. I'm sure that it's going to be posted somewhere around this video. Always around, always happy to speak with people who are either looking to get into the consulting world and just share my thoughts. Happy to speak with people and like I always say, give them my 2 cents, even if it's worth just that.